Hola folks! A not just wholehearted but in fact a whole-souled, exuberant and warm welcome to each one of you smarty out there to the BYJU'S JEE channel into this very special session of the newly introduced series, The Ranker's Edge. I am Bhoomika, your mathematics mentor, and my sole motto of being here today is to open your eyes, enlighten you and educate you about some rational steps and logical strategies which, if you opt for and religiously inculcate in your game plan, it will definitely lead to a humongous push and a monstrous boost to your JEE Main rank. Now, I'm sure the very thought which is tickling you right now and repeatedly popping up in your head is that the upcoming JEE Main attempts are right around the corner and the number of days which are left till then are very few. So how much significance will it make to try something new in this short span of time? इतने कम समय में किसी नए तरीके से काम करके कितना ही फायदा हो जाएगा? This pinch of doubt in your attitude is the main culprit. A war is not lost until you consider it lost. वो कहते हैं ना कि मान लो तो हार है और ठान लो तो जीत है. All I want you to understand at this point of time is that you are stronger than you seem, braver than you believe, and way smarter than you actually think you are. Yes, इसीलिए until and unless you have given your best in the exam, before you have delivered your 100% on the D-Day, do not commit this crime of reaching to a negative judgment about yourself. You get it? Yes, mind it guys, each day, each hour, each minute, each second before your exam matters. Effort till the very last moment has the power to improve your results by a very attractive degree. Let's say right now, for example, your preparation is worthy of getting you 100 marks in the paper. फिलहाल आपकी तैयारी 100 नंबर लायक है, ठीक है? अब इतने कम समय में कितना ही कुछ कर लो, कितनी ही मेहनत कर लो, साम दाम दंड भेद कुछ भी लगा लो, यार 100 से 200 तक तो नहीं पहुंच सकते ना. That is a very unrealistic expectation. But if you make up your mind and seriously and strategically exploit each of the remaining days till the day of your exam, then one thing I can certainly vouch for, that you can make your score reach from 100 to 120, 130. Yes, and this margin of 20 to 30 marks is enough to create a hell lot of difference in your JEE Main rank, and as a result, getting into an average college. From getting into an average college, your chances of getting into a much better, more decent college elevate remarkably. Okay? Are you getting my point? So, instead of getting demotivated, demoralized, hopeless, instead of, downcasting yourself as incompetent and inferior, come with me. I am going to befriend you with some very useful insights and observations which in this limited amount of time will give a strong thrust to your preparation. They will amplify your confidence and magnify your score, specifically in mathematics. Okay, hard work बहुत हो गया boss. Now it's time for some smart work. So without any further delay, let's dive right into the discussion. Allow me to acquaint you with some tips and tactics which are capable to give an instantaneous and decent boost to your JEE Main rank. Number 1 is retrospect your mistakes. Let's face it, अगर आपका पिछला JEE Main attempt अच्छा नहीं हुआ तो इसका सीधा मतलब है कि आपकी तरफ से पक्का से कुछ तो लैकिंग रहा होगा. अब वो कमी एग्जैक्टली क्या थी, कहाँ थी, ये सबसे अच्छे से आप जानते हैं because you are your best judge. आप दुनिया को बेवकूफ बना सकते हो पर खुद को नहीं. Yes, always remember preparation is not just about studying, it is also about knowing and discovering your own self. So what is required of you is to be brutally honest with yourself and maturely introspect as to what exactly went wrong, where did things go out of place, and jot them down on a piece of paper so that all those points get registered here and you do not end up committing the exact same mistakes in the next attempt, because that is going to be very disheartening and unfortunate at the same time. Now, why is it required to go in hindsight and check all the points where we slipped off the road? See, the answer is very simple. अगर प्रेपरेशन पहले जैसी होगी तो रिजल्ट भी पहले जैसा होगा। तो इम्प्रूव्ड बेटर रिजल्ट्स के लिए क्या करना होगा? पुरानी प्रेपरेशन में जो भी गलतियां रही उनको रेक्टिफाई करना होगा। Because it's obvious na that if you want to arrive at a better destination, you will have to improvise the path also that you opt for. Understood? Now, number 2 says, do not get stuck. You have to keep moving forward. Always remember that true measure of success is one's ability to bounce back. See guys, I genuinely understand कि जब पेपर अच्छा नहीं जाता है तो बुरा लगता है, I know. अगर आपका previous JEE main attempt was not up to the mark, you are allowed to feel sad, you are allowed to feel upset, but you are strictly not allowed to stay there, to sulk yourself in that feeling and get depressed, because that is only going to lead to your self-belief and self-confidence getting shattered, and that in turn will invite self-doubt. And self-doubt, oh my God, is like slow poison. You have to promise yourself that you will never ever let it enter your system at any cost. लॉजिकली सोचो यार, एनटीए ने हमें 4 अटेम्प्ट्स दिए हैं, 4 मौके दिए हैं जेई मेन का पेपर देने के, सो वी आर गोइंग टू एक्सप्लॉइट दिस अपॉर्चुनिटी टू आवर मैक्सिमम एडवांटेज. द रूल इज सिंपल. नंबर 1, ब्रेवली आइडेंटिफाई योर मिस्टेक्स. जब तक गलतियां समझ नहीं आएंगी तब तक इंप्रूवमेंट का स्कोप 0 है. Once you are done identifying your mistakes, move on to step 2, which says that accept and embrace your mistakes gracefully and wholeheartedly, and then move on to step 3, which says that make an action plan to rectify your mistakes and follow that plan diligently, honestly. That's it. Number 3 is prerequisites. बिना PNC, that is बिना permutation and combination के probability को strong कर पाना is next to impossible. इसका सीधा मतलब है कि PNC acts as a very relevant prerequisite for mastering probability. Exactly in the same manner, if I talk about calculus and algebra, which are 2 big fat units in the syllabus of mathematics, then इनके almost हर chapter में आपको ऐसे सवाल मिल जाएंगे जिनको क्रैक करने के लिए you would need the mathematical tools like basic trigonometric identities and results. Similarly, sound understanding of certain mathematical tools like inequalities, modulus, sets, intervals is a must if you want to be able to efficiently, smartly and quickly solve questions from almost every chapter of mathematics. So, are you able to realize the importance of prerequisites? See, just like a building with weak foundation and weak base does not have a long life, exactly in the same manner, if your command over your basics and fundamentals is weak, you are bound to face struggle in your entire journey of mathematics. Okay? So, if you are someone whose hold over the prerequisites is not that strong, it's high time you strengthen it. Got it? Next is number 4, which is the magical word practice. Understand कि अगर आपको पेपर फोड़ना है तो along with thorough preparation, your skill set for managing the exam temperament is also equally important. Just imagine the scenario कि आपकी preparation बहुत तगड़ी है, आप exam hall में जाते हो, आपके सामने पेपर आता है and at that instant you get hit by anxiety. अब उस anxiousness, उस fear को अगर आप at that moment control नहीं कर पाए तो क्या होगा? बनती हुई चीज बिगड़ जाएगी. You will end up committing silly mistakes and as a result your entire paper taking experience will be a complete blunder. सारी मेहनत बर्बाद. So how to not get succumb to exam pressure? सीधा साधा आंसर है यार इसका. अगर आप चाहते हो कि जेई मेन का पेपर आपको डराना बंद कर दे तो यार उससे दोस्ती कर लो, जिसके लिए आपको उसके साथ मैक्सिमम टू मैक्सिमम क्वालिटी टाइम स्पेंड करना होगा. और वो कैसे हो सकता है? By taking that exam again and again multiple times before it actually happens. और वो कैसे हो सकता है? By recreating it via mock tests. Yes, that's how simple the answer is. More the number of mock tests, lesser are your chances of being victimized to exam pressure, exam stress, exam anxiety. And hence better will be your performance. Now point number 1 is, क्योंकि ज़्यादा दिन अभी बचे नहीं हैं till your exam date, ideal case scenario is कि आप हर दिन एक mock test लें या max to max हर 2 दिन में एक mock test लें. ठीक है? And point number 2, because mock tests have the power to change your fate drastically, that is why you better take them damn seriously. ओके जब भी आप मॉक टेस्ट लेने बैठते हैं तो यू हैव टू कंप्लीटली आइसोलेट योरसेल्फ. यू शुड बी all by yourself. There should be no distraction, no phone, कोई इंसान इर्द गिर्द घूमते ना रहे, कोई भी एक्स्ट्रा टैब आपके स्क्रीन पे खुला ना रहे. 3 घंटे की इज्जत से सिटिंग देनी है और उस मॉक टेस्ट को आपको अपना एक्चुअल जेई मेन का पेपर समझ के ही देना है, तभी फायदा है, वरना नहीं. आया समझ? नाउ mock test dena is just half the battle won. If you want to win the next half, that you can do by analyzing your paper each time you take it. Yes, every 3-hour mock test should be followed compulsorily by 1.5 to 2 hour in-depth analysis. जी हाँ, हर बार मॉक टेस्ट देने के बाद जब आप अपनी परफॉर्मेंस को शिद्दत से इंस्पेक्ट करते हैं तो आपको वहां से बहुत सारे यूजफुल इंसाइट्स मिलते हैं. जैसे कि नंबर 1, आप अपने टाइम मैनेजमेंट स्किल्स को समझ पाते हैं कि भाई आपने 3 घंटे का वक्त कितने एफिशिएंटली थ्रू आउट यूज किया. नंबर 2, आप अपने स्पीड और एक्यूरेसी के बीच में बैलेंस को समझ पाते हैं. नंबर 3, आप अपने स्ट्रॉन्ग एरियाज आइडेंटिफाई कर पाते हैं, जो कि वो टॉपिक्स हैं जिनके सवाल आपको देखते ही साथ चमक गए कि कैसे करने हैं, एंड विद इन नो टाइम यू वर एबल टू रीच टू देयर आंसर करेक्टली. नंबर 4, यू आर एबल टू आइडेंटिफाई योर मॉडरेट स्ट्रेंथ वाले एरियाज, जो कि वो टॉपिक्स इंक्लूड करते हैं जिनके सवाल आपको फेमिलियर तो लगे, आपकी गट फीलिंग ने कहा कि हाँ यार बन जाएंगे, लेकिन उन सवालों के सॉल्यूशंस की मेथोडोलॉजी और अप्रोच तक पहुंचने में आपको थोड़ा ज्यादा वक्त लगा. एंड नंबर 5, यू आर एबल टू आइडेंटिफाई योर वीक एरियाज, जिसमें वो टॉपिक्स बैठे हैं जिनके सवाल पढ़ते साथ ही आपके सर के ऊपर से निकल गए. मतलब यू फाउंड दोज क्वेश्चंस टू बी वेरी चैलेंजिंग, ब्रेनस्टॉर्मिंग, बेसिकली नॉट डूएबल एट ऑल. ठीक है, ये पूरी एनालिसिस करने के बाद आपको अपनी प्रेपरेशन को अकॉर्डिंगली इम्प्रोवाइज करना होता है. जैसे कि आई जस्ट हेल्प यू आउट विद दिस. जो स्ट्रॉन्ग टॉपिक्स हैं वो स्ट्रॉन्ग हैं, ग्रेट, उनको नहीं छेड़ना. जो मॉडरेट स्ट्रेंथ के टॉपिक्स हैं, है ना, उनको आप स्ट्रॉन्ग में कन्वर्ट कर सकते हो. कैसे? उनको थोड़ा ज्यादा समय देना होगा और उन टॉपिक्स से पिछले 8 से 10 साल में जितने भी सवाल आए हैं सब लगा डालो. Yes, I'm talking about strengthening your moderate strength wale topics using the previous year questions. That's it. This is the strategy which is going to help you convert your moderate level topics into strengths and strong topics. वहीं अगर मैं weak area की बात करूं तो weak area में बैठे सारे chapters को strong नहीं करना. From this bucket, from the bucket of weak topics, you have to cherry pick those topics which are low input but high output. और इनको strengthen करने का क्या तरीका है? सिर्फ notes and पिछले 8 से 10 साल के previous year questions. That's it. It is more than sufficient. ऐसा करने से आपका strong areas का जो domain है वो बहुत बड़ा हो जाता है, and definitely your chances of getting a better score next time automatically increases. राइट? अब देखो यार, इस डिस्कशन से पेपर को अटेम्प्ट करने की स्ट्रैटेजी निकल के आती है कि सबसे पहले कीप इन माइंड दैट यू हैव टू स्टार्ट विथ योर स्ट्रॉन्गेस्ट सब्जेक्ट ऑलवेज. ऑलराइट, लेट्स से आप मैथ से स्टार्ट करते हैं तो राउंड 1 में इनिशियल 10 मिनट्स यू हैव टू स्किम थ्रू ऑल द क्वेश्चंस ऑफ मैथमेटिक्स एंड यू हैव टू कैटेगराइज ईच क्वेश्चन इनटू इजी, मीडियम, डिफिकल्ट. यस, हर क्वेश्चन के आगे ई या एम या डी मार्क लग जाना चाहिए इन द फर्स्ट राउंड. इन द सेकेंड राउंड कम बैक टू दीज क्वेश्चंस एंड किल ऑल द इजी क्वेश्चंस. इन द थर्ड राउंड कम एंड अटैक ऑल द मीडियम लेवल क्वेश्चंस. इन द फोर्थ राउंड स्पेंड सम टाइम ऑन ईच एंड एवरी डिफिकल्ट लेवल क्वेश्चन. और यहाँ पे एक चीज ध्यान रखनी है कि किसी भी सवाल में अगर 1-1.25 मिनट से ज्यादा लगता है, ठीक है, और आपको नहीं चमक रहा कि यार किस अप्रोच से ये सॉल्व होगा, जस्ट लीव इट एंड मूव फॉरवर्ड. उसके आगे क्रॉस लगाओ और उस पर वापस नहीं आना है. ऑल्सो अ टिप, अडॉप्ट द 45 मिनट रूल. मैथ में आपको 45 मिनट्स लगाने हैं स्टार्टिंग में, बिकॉज दैट इज योर स्ट्रॉन्गेस्ट सब्जेक्ट. लेट्स से उस 45 मिनट्स में आपने जितने भी सवाल कर लिए, गुड. उसके बाद मूव अहेड, मूव ऑन टू द नेक्स्ट स्ट्रेंथ सब्जेक्ट विच इज लेट्स से योर केमिस्ट्री. उसमें 45 मिनट्स लगाओ एंड देन मूव ऑन टू द थर्ड सब्जेक्ट विच इज फिजिक्स. उसमें 45 मिनट्स लगाओ. ठीक है, देन द रिमेनिंग 45 मिनट्स यू कैन स्पेंड अक्रॉस ऑल दीज सब्जेक्ट्स एंड ट्राई टू कैप्चर द मैक्सिमम नंबर ऑफ क्वेश्चंस जो बच गए थे अटेम्प्ट करने. ठीक है, अब यहां पे आई वॉन्ट टू मेक अ वेरी ब्यूटिफुल पॉइंट विच आई गेस इज वेरी रेलिवेंट. डू नॉट बिकम अ विक्टिम टू योर ईगो. किसी भी सवाल को यार ईगो पे नहीं लेना है। हो सकता है आप क्वाड्रेटिक इक्वेशंस बहुत अच्छे से पढ़ के गए हो, लेकिन पेपर में क्वाड्रेटिक का एक टफ सवाल आ जाता है। अब आप खुद को चैलेंज कर लेते हो कि यार ऐसा कैसे हो सकता है, मुझे ये सवाल ना बने, मैं तो ऐसे करके ही रहूंगा। And that is where your sanity loses and ego wins, and you end up wasting a lot of your time. ध्यान से सोचो यार, हर सवाल कैरीज इक्वल मार्क्स। तो एक डिफिकल्ट सवाल पे इतना सारा समय इन्वेस्ट करने से अच्छा है कि वही समय आप काफी सारे इजी टू मीडियम लेवल क्वेश्चंस को कॉन्कर करने में लगाओ ना। दैट इज गोइंग टू हेल्प यू मैक्सिमाइज योर स्कोर। ठीक है, सो इट्स अ बिग नो टू टेक एनी क्वेश्चन ऑन योर ईगो। बी कूल, be calm, and have faith in your preparation while taking the paper. You are going to make it through for sure. And now, after absorbing all the rank booster tips, let's talk about the core subject. If I share with you the cumulative distribution of the JEE Main paper among 11th and 12th, it simply says that 49% of the paper was based upon the 11th grade syllabus and 51% of the paper was based upon the 12th grade syllabus. But if I specifically talk about the distribution of the JEE Main paper from the February attempt across all shifts, you can clearly see the representation. 44% is in favor of 11th standard and 56% of the paper is in favor of 12th standard. So from this observation, the major takeaway is that the weightage of both the grades in the JEE Main paper is almost same, almost equal. So NTA does absolutely no bias, no partiality among 11th and 12th while setting the paper, and hence you should not do that too. आपको भी प्रेपरेशन के वक्त कोई भेदभाव नहीं करना है. While preparing, you have to give equal importance, equal respect to the concepts, the topics of both the grades. Okay, that's the bitter truth यार. एक ग्रेड के सिलेबस को स्ट्रॉन्ग करके कुछ नहीं होने वाला, and I'll tell you why. See, previously the number of questions in the JEE Main paper was 75, but now that number has been increased to 90, so obviously NTA is going to try for maximum to maximum syllabus coverage through questions. And hence, on an average, you can expect one question from each chapter. That is why widening your exposure towards chapters, having conceptual knowledge about more and more topics across units, across grades in fact, is going to be extremely advantageous to you. Understood? And now let me unmask the units which together constitute the ocean-sized syllabus of mathematics. So in here we have algebra, calculus, coordinate geometry, trigonometry, and the remaining additional topics. Data reveals that both algebra and calculus acquire lion's share in the JEE Main paper. You can clearly see 37% and 33% respectively. And this is no surprise because the syllabus of both of these units individually, with respect to the number of chapters they contain, number of topics they contain, is humongous. In here, if you just add both these numbers, what you end up getting is 70% of the paper comprises of just these two units, calculus and algebra. So one thing is for sure, if either of these two units is your weak point, be ready to compromise with your JEE Main score and hence your JEE Main rank. Alright, moving ahead, we have coordinate geometry, which holds a decent share of 17% in the paper, whereas trigo, its weightage is very less, just 7%. Also, the miscellaneous topics like mathematical reasoning, statistics, and probability together make up only 6% of the paper. Understood? Now, let's one by one catch hold of each unit and analyze them in detail. Beginning with algebra, the chapters which fall under its umbrella are these. First of all, understand that the concepts in this unit are easy to comprehend, but they are huge in number. Questions from across all these chapters are not conceptually very challenging or struggling, but yes, they are damn time consuming, tedious to solve because they involve a lot of calculation, a lot of solving, and are pretty high in arithmetic. That is why to ace questions from the algebra unit, you should strike a great balance between speed and accuracy, and to achieve that, the best way is practice, practice, and more practice. The next unit is calculus, which comprises of all these chapters. Understand that the variety of concepts across these chapters is very diverse, and you might find some of these concepts pretty challenging to absorb. Also, the nature of questions from this very unit is that they are not uniconceptual. In fact, you require expertise over multiple concepts at the same time in order to crack a particular question. This is what makes the questions from this unit very interesting, but at the same time of a pretty high level. Okay, so more is the number of questions that you solve from calculus, more you will be able to learn about the different types and the different categories of questions, and more you will be able to equip yourself with the right tools, the right strategies, the right methodologies to crack them, kill them, combat them. As a result of rigorous practice, any question from calculus that you find in the paper will look familiar to you and you will feel comfortable attempting them. Moving ahead, we have all these chapters which together make up the trigonometry unit. As you can clearly see, the weightage of this unit in the paper is relatively small, and that is why the frequency of direct questions being asked from among these chapters is very meek. However, having said that, in the recent February attempt, there were direct questions from ITF as well as trigonometric equations, which were easy to moderate level and could easily be solved by using just the standard results. Also, direct questions from heights and distances in the JEE Main paper, the probability is almost negligible. Similarly, direct questions from SOT, that is solution of triangle, the probability is pretty high in JEE Advanced, but in JEE Main, again, it's very low. Okay? Coming up next is coordinate geometry, under which fall all these chapters. Now, in here, there lie tons and tons of theorems, results, acronyms, formulae, which you are ideally supposed to remember and register in your mind. So the struggle is that questions from this very unit don't just demand from you to be able to visually interpret the statement, but also test a lot of your memory. Yes, a lot of your memory is tested, a lot of callbacks are required again and again, and you are needed to again and again recollect some or the other formula very frequently. So in order to ace this unit, what I would sincerely recommend is make a formula sheet or some kind of a compact note with all the results on it, और उसको किसी ऐसी जगह पे stick कर दो अपने घर पे या जहाँ भी आप पढ़ते हो, जो आपको सोते जागते, उठते बैठते, चलते फिरते बार बार दिखता रहे. इससे होगा क्या ना कि over time, a picture of that note subconsciously gets clicked in your mind. एंड लेटर ऑन जब आप अपनी आंख बंद करेंगे तो आपको वो नोट अपने दिमाग में दिख जाएगा, एंड फ्रॉम देयर यू कैन एक्सट्रैक्ट आउट एनी फॉर्मूला, एनी रिजल्ट दैट यू नीड while you are taking the exam. It's magic, but it works. Lastly, we have this tiny unit of miscellaneous chapters which consists of mathematical reasoning, probability, and statistics. Now, I know that the number of questions from this unit in the paper are very few, but the point is that with respect to the JEE Main, the syllabus of each of these chapters is very limited, very concise. The list of topics is very narrow. Also, the concept upon which the questions will be asked in the paper from this unit is quite predictable. Hence, even if a tough question comes from here, chances are that you will be able to do it. Okay? And that is why mastering each of these three topics is less time consuming and at the same time highly beneficial. Understood? Well, now that we are through with the inspection of each of these units individually, let me share with you a very interesting insight. If I talk about the JEE Main papers in the recent February attempt, then across all shifts, a beautiful mixture was seen corresponding to the difficulty level of the questions versus the time that it took to solve them. And this is the actual data. Have a good look. In here, if I particularly begin by catching hold of the green bars, what is it that they suggest? It's clearly saying that questions from each of these chapters were very direct, very straightforward, based upon standard results and could be solved in a jiffy. Whereas if I talk about the questions from LCD and PNC, they were, yes, conceptually pretty challenging, but if you were able to catch hold of the concept which directs these questions, it was just a matter of 1 to 2 to 3 steps to reach to their answer. For example, if I pick up the question which came from relations and functions, it was this. In here you were given that f and g are two functions having the same domain and the same codomain, and f is satisfying a functional relationship that f of n plus 1 is equal to f of n plus f of 1 for every natural number n coming from its domain. Then you have to comment upon the nature of these functions. This question, according to me, was a cakewalk and very, very trivial. Why? Because all you had to do was, in place of n, plug in different values of natural numbers. Let's say n equals 2, n equals 3, n equals 4. From there, you get respective equations. And by looking at these equations, you were quickly able to reach to the generalized equation, which very evidently was itself proclaiming that f is 1, 1. And that's it, you were done. Okay? Next, if I focus all my attention upon these orange bars, they clearly suggest that questions from each of these chapters were based upon direct results but were pretty high in arithmetic and hence were moderately time consuming. Whereas if I talk about the questions from ITF and complex numbers, they were not so straightforward conceptually but were lengthy. Okay? And the question from binomial theorem was, yes, challenging, yes, brainstorming, and also at the same time demanded good number of steps in order to reach to its answer. So for example, in here, if I pick up the question which came from complex numbers, it was this. It clearly says that alpha and beta are real quantities. 1 minus 2 iota is one of the roots of this quadratic equation in the complex variable z, then compute alpha minus beta. Now in here, the only concept which is the heart of this question is that if you have a quadratic equation with real coefficients and it has complex roots, they will always occur in conjugate pairs. In here, because each of the coefficients is real, that is why if 1 minus 2 iota is one of the roots, the other root will be 1 plus 2 iota, and that's it. If this much you've identified, if you have identified the look of both the roots, next what is the step? You use the relationship between roots and coefficients. From there you develop two equations, solve them, get the individual values of alpha and beta, plug it in this expression, compute alpha minus beta. So that's how this question was moderately challenging in terms of the concept and involved a decent amount of calculation as well. Got it? And now lastly, let's place all our attention upon these grey bars, which in here are suggesting that a good number of questions in the paper were not very straightforward. They were moderately challenging in terms of the concept that they were based upon, and at the same time, they were extremely time consuming. If I talk about the question from AOD, it was a cakewalk with respect to the concept that was used to crack it, but to reach to its final answer was a pretty tiring process. Lastly, when it comes to matrices, the question from here was yes brainstorming, was yes struggling, and at the same time, oh my god, so lengthy. Let me show you what it was. So from matrices, the question was this. Just look at the pieces of information given in this question. They are immense. You are given a matrix P. Then in here, alpha is a real constant. Capital Q is an arbitrary matrix which satisfies PQ equals K times identity matrix of order 3. In here, K is a non-zero real constant. Then 2/3 entry of the capital Q matrix is minus K by 8. Determinant of Q is K square by 2. Using all of this, you have to compute the value of alpha square plus K square. Now, let's discuss the drill to solve this question. See, first of all, we have to extract this equation out. It says PQ equals K times identity matrix of order 3. You have to ensure first of all that P is an invertible matrix. After ensuring, what you do, you multiply both sides of this equation by P inverse. Now P inverse is nothing but adjoint of P upon determinant of P. You compute that, okay, and plug it in this equation, that Q is K times P inverse I3. Okay, so what did you do? P inverse is nothing but adjoint of P upon determinant of P. Plug in these values and compute the final expression for Q. Once you have the final expression for Q, using that and using both these pieces of information, you compute alpha, and from there you compute K. Once alpha and K both are known to you, plug it in here and get the value of alpha square plus K square. So did you realize that first of all, the approach to tackle this question is not so natural to get clicked at the very instant that when you witness this question, and second of all, the number of steps which are required to reach to the final answer are humongous. Got it? And now finally, it's time for me to answer the most crucial question. What are the chapters that you should study in what priority order in this limited amount of time in order to maximize your score? So let's begin. See, in general, 27% of your JEE Main paper comprises of questions from these chapters, which demand low input from your end in terms of the effort required to prepare them, and they are also capable at the same time to reward you with great output. Especially if I talk about sequence and series, matrices, mathematical reasoning and statistics, then each of these 4 chapters demand investment of just 2 to 3 days to prepare them with respect to the JEE Main syllabus, and also you can short expect 1 to 2 questions on an average from each of these chapters in the JEE Main paper, which will be doable. Okay. Also, if I talk about quadratic equations, in order to thoroughly prepare this chapter, it will be required from your end to invest low to medium level of effort. Okay, and again 100% you can expect 1 to 2 questions from quadratic equations in your JEE Main paper, which will be of easy to moderate level. Whereas if I talk about these 2 topics, first of all, they are not foreign to you. You do have little bit idea about them from your previous 9th, 10th grades. Yes, now unfortunately, direct questions from these 2 topics, the chances are very, very less. Okay, that is why I regard them to be low input but at the same time low output topics. But specifically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It is compulsory for you to master each of these 5 concepts, each of these 5 chapters before going into the exam hall. And in order to do that, you know what to do. Do not pick up any book. Just your notes and previous year questions, more than enough. Got it? Moving ahead, the next piece of information is this. It says that 58% of your JEE Main paper comes from here. This is the area where a student is pulled maximum by the examiner. If I particularly talk about PNC and ITF, both these topics require relatively medium level of input from your end in getting prepared. But the issue is that first of all, their occurrence in the paper is on and off. A question from these topics may be present in the paper, may not be present in the paper. And secondly, even if you have invested a good amount of time in preparing these 2 chapters, still the chances of you attempting their questions and reaching to its correct answer are still 50-50. That is why I regard these chapters to be medium to high input but low output topics. Whereas if I talk about coordinate geometry, it consists of vectors, 3D, circles, straight lines, conic sections. Each of these topics demand low to medium level of input from your end in getting prepared. Yes, it is possible for you to master these topics by devoting a decent amount of time into them. Whereas calculus, be it differential calculus or integral calculus, the topics in here are pretty heavy in conceptual understanding, and that is why in order to master them, you need to devote a good medium to high level of input. But the point is, both these segments, calculus and coordinate geometry, correspond to high output areas. Or in other words, I can say they are high ROI chapters. The return of investment from these two topics is huge. And that is why leaving them entirely is never advisable. Got it? Lastly, we have this yellow colored region, which is occupied by these tremendously high input chapters, which together comprise of 15% of the weightage in the JEE Main paper. Now, first of all, the amount of time, energy and attention which is required to prepare each of these chapters is enormous. And also at the same time, the chances that the questions which will be asked in the paper from these topics will be of moderate to high level difficulty is very huge. So, with such less time in hands, I would not suggest you, not recommend you to touch these topics if you haven't studied them still ever. Alright? So now I hope the concept of smart study is crystal clear to you. Better results with low input, isn't it? Fine then, let's move ahead. After analyzing the trends of past few JEE Main papers, this is the data that I have which reveals the correspondence between marks and percentile. Now understand, percentile is calculated as per the performance of the students in your shift. Let's say in my shift there are 100 students and I score a 90 percentile. That simply means that 90 students are behind me. Understood? So what is this data trying to say? That if your score falls somewhere between 110 to 120 out of 300, then you can expect a percentile of 96. Similarly, if your score is sandwiched somewhere between 140 to 150, then you can expect a percentile of 98 and so on till 100. A similar structure is present here as well for percentile 91 to 95. Now, one thing which is very prime to note here is that percentile is dependent upon the difficulty level of the paper which is there in your shift. Okay, so you know, right? Paper is being conducted in multiple shifts. Depending upon the difficulty level of your shift, the mapping, the correspondence between marks and percentile may vary marginally. For example, if let's say your paper is very, very difficult, then in 75 marks only, you may end up getting a 93 percentile. Whereas, let's say on the other hand, your paper is damn easy. Okay, in that scenario, in order to get 93 percentile, you may have to score more than 90 marks. Understood? Also guys, it's but obvious that as people get more time, they tend to prepare better and get more comfortable with the exam pattern. Hence, you can expect an increase of 2 to 4% in the cutoffs with subsequent shifts. कहने का मतलब ये है कि same percentile लाने के लिए आपको subsequent attempts में थोड़े ज़्यादा marks लाने पड़ सकते हैं, थोड़ी ज़्यादा मेहनत करनी पड़ सकती है. Got the idea? And with this, it's a wrap guys, but before I leave, I want to share with you a tiny incident about Thomas Alva Edison, who invented the light bulb. You would already be aware that he actually failed 10,000 times before succeeding in inventing the bulb. And when a news reporter asked him how does he feel, he said, I did not fail 10,000 times, but rather I found 10,000 ways which do not work. According to him, the greatest weakness lies in giving up. And the certain most sure way to succeed is always to try just one more time. On this note, it's me, Bhoomika, signing off. I'll meet you super soon again. Till then, take care and keep learning. Thank you.